think about it in the context of, you know, a process where it's a battle between chaos and life, meaning order out of chaos, that sort of changes the perspective a little bit. Because you might even find, well, I'm sure you would find, that in the respective camps, there would be people who would be sympathetic to wanting to bring order out of the chaos. But they're not the ones in control of the dialogue. You know, they tend to be, you know, hidden back behind all the noise and all of the posturing and saber rattling and everything. And I think that's the secret of things. Like when I was talking to someone the other day, and they were talking about within a church environment, trying to get back to the grassroots of like a planning process aimed at, you know, pointing the direction of that particular parish or whatever, you know, in terms of a plan for the way forward. And the process that they decided to adopt was one where they wanted spirit to help guide, you know, the planning process. And the way that they did that is they had this sort of plenary session where every person had to speak. They were given, I think, like 2 minutes or something like that to speak. And basically everyone listened, but then at the end of it, the only discussion there would be is if you wanted to clarify something, and no one was permitted to advocate. It was just, you know, based on a period of contemplation or prayer, looking for guidance, you know, from the spirit. And basically it was just speaking from the heart based on, you know, what arose within you. And then sort of through that process, they would sort of distill down main themes that came out of it, and you know, try and, you know, make sense of some of the broad themes. But it wasn't like, one of the ground rules was you're not allowed to get up and say, I believe this, and, you know, if we don't do this, we're all going to go to hell. And, you know, yeah. It wasn't about that at all. You know, it was just about, you know, what's arising within your heart at the moment. You know.
Okay.
And I seemed to me like an incredibly powerful process if it was well facilitated.
Mm-hmm.
And you would need a fairly strong facilitator in the sense that, you know, if someone decided to become an advocate of a particular topic or whatever, then you'd have to shut that down pretty quickly, I think, you know. You know, because that wasn't what the forum was about. The forum was about is, you know, being contemplative and see what arose within you, and speaking to that rather than using your head, you know, what I know, you know. So it sounded like quite a powerful process, but one that would require the participants to have, you know, be quite enrolled in the idea of, you know, faith, love and hope, I guess.
And where do you say this was in history?
It was part of, I think it's happening now. It's like part of a process, I think, within the Catholic Church.
Okay.
Where, because I think the current Pope is a Jesuit, and they're very much about a contemplative approach, a contemplative spirit.
Are they?
Yeah, very much so. Yeah. So I think it was probably ultimately, you know, influenced by the current Pope, I think, but just from the way that I was talking to someone, like, it just seemed like an incredibly potent way to encourage people, to participate, but then to sort of disarm any sort of stress or worry about participation, because all you need to do is just speak to, what's coming up in your heart, so to speak, So,
Yeah, yeah.
And I think if you were a part of the process and, in the knowledge that you didn't have to, like your contribution wasn't on how are we going to solve this problem, but it was more just about, so what's in your heart at the moment, which is a completely different perspective.
Yeah, it is, isn't it? Interesting.
Yeah, I thought it was fascinating because I'd never heard of that sort of process before.
Yeah, yeah. I'd like to read up a little bit more about it. Have you got even a link to some?
I'll see if I can find something for you. Yeah, but it's certainly out of the Jesuit sort of way of thinking, which is part of the Catholic Church. But yeah, no, I'll see if I can find something for you and flick it through to you.
Yeah.
Because even you think about it, like like our training, the business background, like what's our strategy or what's our mission? It's very much a head process, isn't it?
Yeah.
Rather than the heart process,
Definitely. Yeah, yeah.
And even about our own, like our own. Although my sense is that maybe unknowingly, you've certainly changed a lot in the last, while. But in terms of like just those life questions about, what am I going to focus on now or whatever, even the way you've described it to me, it sounds like you've sort of kind of doing that, you sort of contemplate, this sort of oneness and this openness to, and that, which is what I think, what they mean by that sort of heart-led process.
Yeah, yeah, okay, yeah.
That I am,
Yeah, yeah.
So unless you're like a narcissist or a megalomaniac, the I am can only come from your heart, can't it? Really,
Yeah, yeah.
But no, I thought it was a really fascinating process, and one that, like from my own personal perspective, I thought to myself, I'd love to be a participant in that sort of process, if for no other reason other than just to experience
it.
Yeah.
Yeah, to grow with it.
Yeah.
Yeah. You can imagine if the United Nations use that sort of approach.
Yeah. Wow. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Because I think it would. Well, I don't know for sure, but my guess is if you're using a heart-led approach, at no stage would there ever be a notion of I've got to remove that country or that person or whatever from the face of the earth. I just can't see that ever would be a possibility, So
yeah.
Because when I sort of think about it from like a discernment context, if you're discerning, whether you're coming from a position under the influence of a dark view versus an influence of a light, or a white view, then they seem to come from quite different places in terms of your feeling of experience and that. So in my sense of it, like the way I'd kind of describe it is a lot of the dark view stuff tends to be very much driven by thoughts that come into your mind.
Yeah.
You get this compulsion, I've got to make a decision about that, making assumptions about things like this.
Yeah.
Whereas when you're in a sort of a consolation, sort of like a heart-led sort of process, overwhelmingly, it's more these sort of, in my experience, the sense of like gratitude and like love and and those things seem to be at the fore. And then when you're, reach a T-junction about making a decision, like the decision-making process seems to be about, well, what's going to take me to what I see as my deepest desire, expressed in that sort of format, so
yeah,
which is very much, as I said, like a heart process rather than a head process, isn't it?
Then when you come to a situation like that, and you're, let's call it country U and country R, and country U goes through that process, but country R doesn't, and so R then annihilates country U. And
well, it's hard to know. I mean, if you think about it in a less threatening sense,
country U having gone through this, do you defend yourself?
Yeah, it's hard to know, because I mean, if you think about it in a less threatening sense, like say a business organisation, a lot of the traditional business training, is sort of based on the principles of warfare. Like gaining the high ground, being the dominant player, swallowing up your opposition, all of that sort of aggressive type thing. But if you thought about an organisation that did its planning and its processes, not so much about how it's going to overcome competitors, but just really focus on being true to its own purpose and reason for existence, that's a really different sort of mindset, isn't it?
Yeah. It's an easier analogy to use than something so forthright. Yeah.
And I think the challenge, like when you've got tribal warfare or, one nation against another and that sort of thing, the seeming folly of that is the fact that, we're all walking on the same planet, and we're all human beings, presumably,
I wouldn't be too presumptuous.
But you know what I mean, like it's sort of.
Know what you mean, yeah.
It's sort of, you talk about the truth, like why is it that just because you live in one continent versus another, or some place with these imaginary lines on a map around you, why does that make you different than the person who's on the other side of that imaginary line, so.
Yeah. And we started the conversation of sort of, talking about all the countries that are voting now. Come back to my old home country. Ramaphosa, the head of the ANC, they've now for the first time haven't got a majority. They've got 40%. Okay. And he's made a couple of appeals to, in the context of what you and I are talking about now, he made a couple of speeches in public and appealed to the other parties saying, let's just all join together, okay? And because we all have the same thing at heart. We want to build, and we really can build if we stop fighting each other and being corrupt wherever we can. Could build a fantastic nation. And but the replies from some of the parties were, yes, but it's conditional, or
yeah, as long as you do it my way.
Yeah, that's exactly what it's about. You see, that's absolutely.
Be reasonable and agree with what I'm saying.
Yeah. It's absolutely amazing. And even here in Australia, you know, with the historical people who really historically belong on the continent of Australia, they appear to be have some really good qualities. Okay. And something that the rest of us could learn from. Okay.
I think one of the big problems with politics, well, particularly in Australia, but I assume it's everywhere, is that if the positionality that you take is one based on a philosophy, i.e. socialism or fascism or you know, whatever ism you want to choose, then it doesn't leave a whole lot of room for, you know, what's in our collective interest, does it, really?
Yeah, true. Yeah, because I guess we're still going to work with a consumeristic society.
Yeah, it's hard to imagine it's going to change anytime soon, barring a meteor strike or something like that. Anyway.
Yeah, that happened before, hasn't it?
It has.
Yeah.
Or a flood.
Or a world war.
Well, that's right. And, you know, sometimes historically, you know, as I said before, when you look at some of those biblical stories, historically, you know, the phoenix arises out of the ashes, you know, or the Messiah comes out of the chaos, you know, so, you know, the life comes out of the resurrection, you know. So yeah, it's an interesting thing. But I mean, even when you think back, like, you know, when we were actively interested in some of the Elantra stuff, you know.
Yeah.
It was the same sort of thing, wasn't it? Is, you know, well, if we come from a position of humanity and advancing the best interests of humanity, you know, they tried their darndest to try and get a lot of that philosophical nuances put aside in the interest of, say, okay, well, you know, if this group of people are experiencing extreme hardship because of environmental factors, then how do we help them, you know? You know, and what help makes a true impact to them, you know, like giving them a donation of money, you know, in many respects doesn't help ease their suffering at all. You know?
Yeah.
Might ease someone's conscience, but doesn't ease their suffering, you know, so.
Yeah. Is Elantra still around?
I haven't seen anything from them for quite a while, but I just put it down to the fact that I think its head office was based in the Ukraine, wasn't it? You know, so.
Yeah.
But I'm not sure. I haven't seen anything for ages. You know, not that I've specifically looked for it, but I used to get videos popping up in social media feeds and that, but I haven't seen anything for a long time.
Yeah, I used to as well. And every now and then I would look again and.
Yeah.
But you know, Google has such a control over what gets seen and doesn't get seen.
Oh, exactly right.
It's pathetic.
And I don't know about you, but my sort of impression is like seeing that there's so much AI in these programs now. You know, I just find it incredible, you know, that I could be having a conversation with someone about a topic, and then the next time I go into Facebook, it's like all of a sudden you're getting bombarded by all these ads about that topic that you've had a conversation with someone about.
Yeah, but not even ads, you know, also just videos and things about that topic.
Yeah.
It's, and it actually, I find it quite annoying because particularly first thing in the morning when I'm having my cuppa in bed and I look through YouTube and other things, and all I see all the time is stuff that I've been looking at historically, the subjects, but absolutely nothing brand new.
Yeah, yeah.
And that's what I want. I want new stuff, and you don't know what you don't know. So, so you
we shouldn't underestimate the power of some of that AI. Because I ran a little experiment based on something that we were talking about, I don't know, a few weeks ago now, about putting in really detailed descriptions.
Yeah.
And I wrote one, which had like nearly, I don't know, 600 or 700 word description of what I was looking for.
Right.
And what it produced in a matter of seconds, was just incredible. It was just incredible.
Absolutely so. Absolutely so. Yeah, I just, the clearer you are in what you write down, the clearer they're going to come back. And
yeah, and just so well written. It was quite a complex topic, but it delivered up 2 pages, which just nailed it. And I'm thinking, wow. So then I was sort of thinking from that, wow, okay, well, maybe I need to check in on the quality of the conversations I'm having with other people if I want to change what I'm getting in my feed. So.
Yes.
No more talking about the weather. Let's get into some meaty subjects here. Put the AI to work, But anyway.
Yeah.
But I don't know about you. I do. I'm sure it's the same for you. But sometimes when you get into that numb mind sort of mindset where you're just flicking through social media or whatever, the amount of absolute garbage which comes up. I mean, absolute garbage. Like people doing stupid things, and you're just thinking, what on earth?
Yeah.
But I suppose as the old saying is, if you don't like the clowns, don't go to the circus. So.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't. My brother, as I've mentioned before, he spends a lot of time on Facebook, and he just doesn't. Every single day, he sends me links to stuff he's found on Facebook. So that's the only reason I find myself in Facebook, is because he sent me there with some link or other. Through choice, I enjoy videos. I enjoy interviews. So now I get absolutely loaded with interviews, page after page after page of interviews to choose from. Just because I watched the one and I found it very interesting, and I probably gave it a thumbs up, and I thought, well, you deserve that.
But as you say, it's a surefire way to see if the feed get chock-a-block full of that.
Yeah, I've started unfollowing some of the people now. Historically, following somebody meant when they publish something, and you basically you ask for that. That's fine. But now, even if it's not the latest, if it was 5 years ago, suddenly, now it's the same thing. It's spanked in your face. But anyway, I've started now the ones that don't interest me.
I think that's the other context, which is probably related to what we've been talking about too. In my experience, you look at some of those like videos and that, and like the video, the motivation for making the video is more driven by a need for someone to be seen to be saying something or trying to influence a view, rather than having something genuine that they want to share.
Yeah. True. And one of the things I watched probably since we last spoke, and that was how AI through facial recognition and duplication can produce the identical person to who you are following. Okay, and they had the two screens, the split screen of the AI looking like him, and him, and listening to the voices. Okay, they were identical.
Yeah, our ability to discern that is so much more complex, isn't it? Yeah.
It's so difficult now, so difficult. And some of them set themselves up like that in order to mislead. Whereas the genuine guy, he is what he is, and he's got some good stuff to share. Now you've got this other entity, which for all intents and purposes you're concerned is him, and it's not.
No, I sort of find myself too, like even to the extent that, like I might get an email from, I don't know, like the bank or something like that. And like the first thing I find myself saying is like, is this real? Like, is this really from the bank? And the scammers and the fraudsters or the AI generated stuff is, as you say, is so sophisticated these days that sometimes it's very, very hard to discern whether it's real or not.
You can't discern. I think that's the bottom line. I mean, it's easy when I was spammed yesterday with an email, okay, and it came from, it's about your visa, okay.
Yeah.
Okay? And of course that's I pick up quickly when there's a visa because we're waiting for an answer and so on, and it was like, it really looked official, and then please complete this form, and there was, and that link didn't ring true to me. Okay, and I clicked on it and it didn't take me to something that the Department of Industries or whatever it is would have. Okay, and so very, very subtle. You get pulled, roped into these things.
Which is kind of sad in one sense, in my view, because you just look at everything with distrust, don't you?
Yeah.
And suspicion, and but anyway.
But where do you get? I mean, both of us, we have our subjects that we like to get information about and move forward with. Yeah.
And you're right, it's very hard to find a trusted source, isn't it?
Yeah. So even if you let's say you've got a favorite author and he writes a book, even if the book was written 90% by an AI, it obviously gels with what he wanted to write. Okay. So there, I guess the AI has been used constructively and used as a constructive tool. Okay.
It's hard to know, isn't it? I guess. I mean, I wonder if one of the discerning things is, and I'm not sure how sophisticated AI can be in this area, but if the thing is about a factual situation, well, the facts are pretty much, what's in the public domain largely, aren't they?
Yeah, yes.
But if someone is sort of talking to you, about, I guess, in the realm of, philosophy or something like that, which is an exploration of maybe ideas or principles or something like that, then, and even like from your healthcare perspective, looking at new forms of treatment and the rationale behind the treatment and stuff like that, maybe that's an area that AI might struggle in a bit more. I'm not sure. You know, I've never tested it, but
yeah,
possibly. You know.
I don't think AI is struggling in any area at the moment. Okay. Now, tomorrow I'm going to start researching a class that I've done historically for many years, exciting developments of AI. Okay. And now you can really get AI to write that whole thing.
Yeah, about itself. Just an autobiography, yeah.
Yeah, and so I'm looking forward to doing that because there aren't any lies there. You know?
Actually, an interesting question to pose to it is that, you know, what does AI see as you know, the dangers and threats
of what, on the planet, of people?
Oh no, even of its own existence. You know.
Oh
So.
yeah, no, you get quite a lot of that. Okay.
Oh, do you? Yeah.
Yes.
Oh, okay.
Yes. Yeah. And you can, you know, I don't know if you are using a ChatGPT 40.
No, I don't think I was using that. No.
Okay. That is like an enormous leap forward from ChatGPT 4. Okay.
Okay.
And it's, I don't know why they called it 40. I haven't bothered to find out. I'm sure I can. But oh my goodness, you can have a conversation like you and I are having. Okay. And it just seems to be so able to go anywhere. Okay. Experience. I mean, it puts Google Gemini, although I think this week Google is upgrading their AI, but I don't know what that one is like. But goodness, it put Google's Gemini to shame.
So is the ChatGPT one, is that owned by Microsoft, or is that sort of independent of that, or?
Yeah, it is. It's owned by Bing, or Bing uses it. Okay, so yes, Microsoft, and it's in the short write-up that I read the first time before I decided to experiment with it, was that it's the precursor to something much bigger that's coming up, and this is just experimenting with portion of that next thing that's coming up.
Wow.
And so I used it, and I enjoy it. Okay, really quite amazing. So yeah, and I've also been using a lot more of the image creation. Okay, and I don't know if I told you last week. If I do, I apologize. And that is, I did a class on recent discoveries of things that were older than the pyramids and so on. Okay.
Yeah.
So things that were very old that had been discovered, or found, or uncovered, and I asked both Gemini and Chat40 to give me what they envisaged, to give me a picture of what they envisaged the original looked like in its heyday.
Oh, yeah, I do remember this.
Yeah. And oh my goodness, I so enjoyed that because, you know, it just helps with the imagination, you know. You know they don't know, okay, but they give you an answer. They give you a drawing, okay. Absolutely amazing. Yeah. Anyway.
It's fascinating, isn't it? It really is.
Yeah, it is fascinating. And I guess we just accept the moment that we live in. That's the bottom line. Yeah?
Well, I don't think there's a whole lot else we can do, is there?
I missed that.
So I don't know that there's a whole lot of other things that we can do, is there? But anyway.
Oh, yes. We can take sides and we can criticize and we can slay the giant.
Try and convince other people why we're right.
Yeah. So, no, there are other ways. I mean, I think the rest of the world live in other ways.
True. Anyway.
I think it's a good place. You're right.
Yeah. Okay. Well, you take care, and hopefully you get a decent night's rest tonight. So.
I hope so too. I really do. And thanks for chatting. I nearly put you off because I thought, oh, I'm only going to depress you, But you've uplifted me, so that's made a big difference. I think.
Well, that's good. That's good.
Yeah.
Well, that's what friends are for, isn't it? So. Yeah.
That's great. I agree. That's super. So thanks very much. I'm actually smiling and feeling a lot lighter now.
Oh, good. Good. Okay then.
See ya.
See you now. Bye now.
Bye.